All right, all right. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to our third fireside chat. What better way to spend the last day of Black History Month?
Okay.
Okay,
Yes, we got an extra day this year. I'm excited.
period. Yes. My name is Naija Rudolph, and I'm the founder of Network While Black. This series is called Gaining Insight, Black execs making a seat at the table. Tonight's series, tonight's guest, we have Daisha Roberts. Deja took a less traditional route in the world of fashion. She's worked in production, client services, events, and now she currently holds the programming director of ADWEEK. Today, Deja and I will be discussing exploring alternative careers in the fashion beauty space. I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Me too. What a lovely intro. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You are very welcome. So I want
Yes.
to hop right into it. The
Yeah,
first
let's
question
do it.
I always ask my guests, all right? Deja, how instrumental has networking been in your career?
Oh my gosh. Super instrumental. I think networking is a skill that we don't talk about enough.
Mhm.
It's I have been just privileged enough to have great mentors as well that kind of helped on my career path. And put me in the rooms, the proper rooms to network. But I've always been a person that's just like, if I want it, I'm gonna go get it and I'm gonna figure out how to do it. So, my friends often call me like the cold email queen because I will pitch an email, I will pitch whatever, and I will send it. I think we talk about like being delulu. I'm all of that. And I think it's okay. Like, you have to have a little bit of that, especially when you're passionate and you're hungry and you're in a creative industry. So I say never to be scared to network. Find someone that looks like you, and that you think can relate to you and in a background that resonates with you and, connect with them. But I think the biggest thing about networking too, though, is that it shouldn't feel transactional. It shouldn't just feel like, oh, I'm connecting with you because I need something, or, it should be a give and give situation. It shouldn't just be give and take. I always try to, when I'm networking with people or, I'm making a new relationship, if I find out they just got engaged, hey, congratulations. Just wanted to say kudos to you on your love. Like small things go a long way. So that's always one of my key points when I tell others about networking.
Okay, me and you have a couple things in common. Okay. Number
Yes.
one, the cold emailing. A
Yes.
lot of
Yes.
my jobs have come from cold emailing. A lot
Yeah.
of like my friends in New York have come from cold emailing.
Yeah.
Simply because if I see someone that, oh, she's cute, or oh, I like
Yeah.
her style, oh,
Yeah.
they work at this company, let me see, cold emailing.
Code.
Second, transactional, how networking shouldn't be transactional. I 100% agree. It should
Yeah.
not be transactional at all.
Yeah.
Because when you walk up to someone and say, so what do you do? Now all of a sudden it's like, well, damn, hi to you
Exactly.
too. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
don't like that.
I always say, like, even though we're in these environments that's like work led, right? Like, not to lead the conversation with work. We just had a small conversation, and I told you I'm from Atlanta, and you said you're from Georgia, and, Metro Atlanta as well. And we connected on that. I just think we have to be able to, when you're in a creative career, you have to be able to talk. It's like really no way around it. And I know it's sometimes hard, but I often like to think of myself as having an alter ego. And, I've always kind of had this big personality and I'm pretty confident, but, sometimes you do get shy. So I like to just, tap into that girl and work the room the best way I know how. And so oftentimes I do it the way that you said. If I like someone's outfit, hey, you look super cute today. Your hair is bomb. Yes, yes, black girl, yes, black queen. Like I'm that girl, right? And of course, that's what works for me. But I think people have to find what works for them and then build the relationship from there.
You would have loved my event. You would have, we had networking bingo. All right.
Yeah.
People was going around the room asking if they seen Beyonce overseas.
Okay. I love that. Yes. I would have definitely loved it. The next one, please let me know and I'll be there.
Oh, you invited already in the email. Don't worry. Don't
Yes.
worry. But it
Yes.
actually leads to my next question because so you already said you're a talker. So
Yeah.
have you always been confident in your networking skills, or have you leaned more towards let my work speak for itself?
A little of both. I've always been confident, like I said. But you know, when you're starting and let's go back a little. I started in fashion and beauty out of college and I was young. I was like 22 years old. I'm in this like jiggy jungle of a city. Like I really put on a good front because coming from the South, I was just like, oh no, like, and I went to Hampton in Virginia. And so it's not like you're DC where you're in a bigger city. So I'm like dropped into New York. The people are a little meaner than what I'm used to. So, I toughened up real quick. But that gave me that confidence once I started working and I started to get into certain rooms to say, hey, yeah, I can do all the things that I say that I can do. And I have this personality to match it. So that was definitely helpful for me.
I'm glad you brought up Hampton because I went to Howard.
Oh,
See you.
okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I
I want
love
to
that.
ask you, yes. So Hampton Howard, in case y'all don't know, we have like a bit of a rivalry,
A
but
little.
a little bit. It's all love though. It's all love. But I want to
Yes.
ask you, did your HBCU experience help shape your career aspirations?
I would say yes. But I would also say as you know, being from Atlanta, we're spoiled in a sense. I grew up knowing Black excellence, and I've always had Black doctors and Black teachers, and so Hampton just was the icing on the cake for me. It helped me to really hone in on my love and my skills. I actually went to Hampton because of Shiona Tarini, and I tell this story all the time. She was my first introductions to fashion and fashion PR, so I was like, I'm doing what she did. And so because of that, Hampton really opened my eyes. Similar to most HBCUs, we don't have a fashion program. The most that I could do was be an art minor when I was in college, and I kind of made my own track. I had a great mentor, a great advisor that kind of steered me in the way to go. I didn't even think of PR when I was in college. I was a print journalism major. I thought I'd be writing the rest of my life. I wanted to be an editor at one point. I've been collecting magazines since I was 13 years old. So I was like, that's it. That's the path. And he was like, girl, you talk, you could tell stories, you could do all of this. Like, don't just hold yourself to one thing, explore PR. And I just, I thank him like all the time because that really helped to steer my career. So yes, my HBCU definitely helped to shape who I am, one, personally and professionally.
I love that. We actually have different experiences growing up in Georgia. So
Yeah.
you said you had like black, because remember, I'm from Gwinnett.
Oh, yes.
Or
Yes.
before Migos made it cool. So I had
Right.
white doctors. I
Oh,
had,
okay. Okay.
I
Yes.
went to
Yes.
mixed school. And
Okay.
why I wanted to
Yes.
go to Howard is because I'm like, all right, I need to be around some black people.
I understand.
Yeah, that's completely different. But also, I wanted to be a PR major and I actually majored in art.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
With public relations, yeah, they denied me. The
Oh, no.
school denied me. And I was like, wow. But I think that was just God
Exactly. Exactly.
just directed me into a different path.
Mhm.
Also, I want to ask you, right? Because Network While Black, we talk about the importance of proximity. And I read in your
Right.
bio, you always knew you wanted to come to New York, and you came to New York shortly after graduating. So tell
Yeah.
me why New York was the path for you. Tell me why this particular location you said, I need to be here.
You know what? I think it was just mostly because, like I said, I have been collecting magazines from a very young age. And all of the magazines were based in New York, and all of the people that I looked up to, the editors at that time, and still, they're based in New York. So that was as a girl from, Atlanta, DeKalb County, I'm like, okay, that's the closest thing I think I'm gonna get, like LA wasn't on my radar at that point. Um, International, of course, wasn't on my radar. I was so hyper focused on New York. I actually, out of high school, I got into FIT and Parsons, and then instantly I was like, no. I want to go to a HBCU, because that's where I just felt like I would really be steered and reared in the right direction. And I did it last minute, but yeah, so I just think that everything up until now has been really, like I said, the lens was just on New York. I mean, the shows were on New York, the people were in New York. I kind of always felt like a little outcast in Atlanta just because I've always had a different style, than what you would typically see there. And I know you know what you would see. So I always felt like I'm a little different, and so I just wanted to explore that. New York was that place for me. I think New York champions diversity and creativity, and I wanted that escape. And my story getting to New York is even crazier. But like I said, I'm since I was in high school, I did Teen Vogue Fashion U, and I went to New York, and I was like, "This is it, Mom." My mom went with me, and I was like, "This is it. I'm coming here by any means necessary."
Wait, so tell us how you got to New York. I want to hear that story.
So when I graduated from Hampton, I actually started the grad program at SCAD. And then I had an internship at Factory PR. And I was like, you know what? I like it here. Like I can actually do this. Like I can live in New York, I can move and shake, I can do the things. So I quit that program like in the middle. I was almost done, mind you, girl. I was almost done with the program, started a new program in LIM to get me to New York because of course that gives you housing, it gives you food. I use that as my excuse to get there. And so yeah, I started all over. I would have been a 2015 graduate instead of a 2016 graduate, but here we
Wow.
are.
That was the year I graduated too.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
Hey,
I
so much
graduated.
common.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. I graduated college in 2015 and then grad school 2016.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to pivot a little bit
Yeah.
because I want to talk about your career now. All
Yeah.
right. So a lot of people don't know that fashion and beauty can be very multidimensional.
Yes.
And you are the programming director for ADWEEK. Can you tell us exactly what does a programming director do?
Yes, I get that question often. So, Adweek, of course, is more of a business publication. Prior to that, I worked at other fashion pubs such as High Snob and some others. But at Adweek, programming is interesting, right? Because it can be a lot of different things at different places. If you look at what the programming director does at GQ, their programming differs a bit from Adweek's, right? So I program editorial events. So I bring to life, for the most part, we call it pages to the stages. So what the writers have written, we try to bring it to the stage. So a lot of that is storytelling, a lot of that is casting, talent. I work across different divisions, whether it's the podcast, whether it's editorial, and anything in between, to be honest. And I help to program it. Programming just means bringing it to life. And also, when you go to conferences such a CultureCon or any of like our conferences at Adweek, they have someone in place that's called a programming person, a talent person that pretty much puts the panels together. And so that's what I do.
So what's your favorite part about your job?
Well, I would say talent, one. That's always been the thing for me. I love people, and storytelling would probably be the second. So seeing all of it come to life, and you know what, and with Adweek, because it is a business focused publication, being able to really bring in that fashion presence is great. It's something that they don't typically see, and something that they've kind of shied away from in the past. And so now we're opening up, we're getting a little more creative, and I'm able to really shine a light on those creators, those executives, those folks just in the fashion and beauty industry. And that's the most rewarding part of it, and culture as well. So
So you've worked in client services, production, you've done events, and now you do programming. Would you say all of your skills have led to this particular career? This
yeah, so really event production, programming, they kind of go hand in hand a little, right? Like it still falls under the event realm a bit. A lot of times you might say, hey, I don't really like to plan or produce, but I'm a talent person. I can tell a story. You might take the route of programming. A lot of the roles I've had, I had to do everything when it came to production. So I had to know a little bit of everything. When I first started, I was working at Spring Studios as an event coordinator, and that was literally like fashion boot camp. So, but it taught me so many facets of events, and it showed me that I really loved the talent side of it, that I really loved, working with celebrity, and that the backstage and all the hustle and bustle. So I really built from there. And like I said earlier, my mentor, she works in talent as well, and she really opened my eyes to what that meant. So I've had roles such as like influencer marketing manager, and et cetera, when I was first starting. And then it just kind of went on from there. Because I have this talent background, I'm able to really plug and play in a sense. And events as well. I always say, if people can learn how to do events, produce events, it's a good side hustle, and it's a good skill set to have, on a rainy day.
Do you think interning and assisting are important starting out?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes. Interning for sure. I come from a time, and this might age me a bit, but I come from a time in fashion where it was one unpaid, and I was on the subway with gowns in both hands,
Girl,
falling, tripping over. Like, it was rough. So I come from that era, but it taught me resilience. It taught me, one, just that hunger. And I was like, I'm getting up out of here. Okay. Like, I'm not going to be an intern or assistant forever. And it just helped me to really keep my eye on the prize. But it also, that's another form of networking, right? Because a lot of times we want to network up, but we can network across as well. And a lot of the people that we are interning with, or even the assistants or the coordinators, they become your great friends, or people that can put you on to something else later down the line. So I say interning is quintessential to any industry, whether it's fashion, beauty, entertainment, media, and beyond.
you hit the nail on the head, because here at Network While Black, we talk
Yes.
about networking across. That
Oh
is
yeah.
super important. People that I've interned with are still some of my closest friends. I said,
Same.
you out the gutter with them. You feel me? Like,
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. And it's just important. Like, you want to rise with people, right? Like, what fun is it to climb up this ladder in a sense, and you don't have anyone by your side? So I always say network across, utilize your network, your friends, whoever you can, to try to get to the next level.
100% agree.
Yes.
The Fordham and got a fashion law degree during the
Yes,
pandemic.
I did.
You already had you already had a master's by then. What made you pursue a degree in fashion law?
So I would say, okay, so this was COVID, right? So everything shut down. I actually was freelancing during this time a bit, and all of my projects were cut. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I gonna do? We're in New York, I'm not making money. Like, what is happening? So during that time, and obviously it was a lot of things just happening in the world as well. I found this program randomly enough. I sent it to one of my friends. She actually was in my grad program with me at LIM, and she got her second master's as well. She works in fashion. And I really think for us, it was the diversity and inclusion portion of the program that really spoke to me. So while I was there, my main points of interest was they would have like a human rights division. And so I was in those classes, I was in the DEI classes, but also from a very early point in my career, I was dealing with big budgets, I was dealing with contracts, and I was just like figuring it out, right? Like, I didn't have someone say, "Hey, Deja, this is how you read a contract. This is how you redline it." I figured all of those things out. And I also, I'm inquisitive. I'm a natural student. So I would go sit next to my boss, and say, "Hey, can I watch you redline this?" Or, whatever. But I was never formally taught, because I didn't have a true business background prior to going to LIM. And so that was my way to just really fine tune those skills and to hone in on those skills. So while it was very much so about understanding the rights and the laws within fashion in the industry. It was also just more so about also me, like I said, honing in on the skill set that I already developed.
I want to ask you, do you think you needed a an additional degree to move up the ladder?
Absolutely not. No, no, it was just my personal preference. I always say I'm just like a active student. I would go back to school right now. I really do enjoy school. I know that's probably like, I know people probably like, girl, what? But I do. I enjoy learning. I'm very inquisitive. I'm a researcher by nature. That's probably the PR and marketing in me. But no, I don't think, I mean, we hear about people all the time that don't have a college degree, so masters is just like icing on the cake, so, and also let's go back to the networking too. Every point in my life, I've been able to network at these schools, right? So LIM gave me the opportunity to network with a great group of girls that I'm still friends with. We were the Black girls in the program. And so that's where Kaylin comes in. But it gave me the opportunity to network with them and then also my professors. And then again at Fordham, I gained other friends that had interests in law and fashion law specifically and human rights and all of these different things. And now, I can call on them if there's something at my job. I'm like, oh, I need a second eye on a contract. That's another form of networking as well. And I've always kind of used school as that tool.
I love that. So I want
Yeah.
to ask, all right, so we're talking about alternative careers in
Yes.
fashion, right? Fashion and beauty space. Can you give us what other careers aren't very like talked about, but they're out there? Do you know of any
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
fashion?
of course. So special projects has become a thing in recent years, which is almost like all encompassing. I think depending on where the role is, it looks different for folks, but special projects could be campaigns, it could be events, it can be X, Y, and Z. But I think that's definitely one. Events for some reason is not often highlighted a lot. I mean, obviously it's its own industry in a sense, but the folks behind these pop-ups, the activations, the fashion shows are still very much so fashion people, and they have a perspective. They're storytellers in their own right. Um, I often talk about, I have friends that work in logistics and supply chain. That's often something that's not talked about either. Then you have fashion media, it kind of programming, like what I do, it kind of goes, it runs the gamut. And I think fashion law, and it's so crazy because I talk about fashion law often and people are like, oh my gosh, I would have never thought fashion is law. I'm like, all these brands have lawyers, guys. Like how do you think that these deals are being made? But that's a big one too. And brand partnerships, client services, account management, project management. It's so many different ways. And you know what? Research analysts as well. I saw someone who's a fashion researcher the other day, a fashion psychologist follows me on LinkedIn. It's so many things. It's so many things. And I'm a big advocate for, if you have a lot of passions, if you're like me, you're multi-hyphenate, that's okay. You can fuse them.
And I love how you hit on all of those careers because
Yeah.
the behind the scenes girlies, we make things go around, okay?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
people only see the finished product, but they don't see,
Right.
like, listen, you got to plan this. You got
Yeah.
to get the cast and crew. You got to
Yes.
execute. You got to like
Mhm.
think of everything. When they just look at it, they're only looking at the picture, the bigger picture,
Right.
post.
Right.
But
Right.
it takes a lot that goes into it.
A
So,
lot. A lot. A lot.
child, a whole lot. Yes.
Yeah, and I think like to your point, especially when it comes to events and campaigns, people see the finished product and they think it's so glamorous, but it was not glamorous getting there. And so, that's why I'm a big advocate for the behind the scenes girls, like you said, just because we do so much of the work and it's never really recognized. The work is recognized, but the folks behind the scenes aren't. So I try to champion us whenever I can.
1000% agree because we work hard.
Yes, absolutely.
Work
Absolutely.
hard. And a lot of your skills are actually very transferable.
Yeah.
And we talked about transferable skills on Network While Black a lot. Can you tell us, how do you communicate your value when going for a new role?
I always like to hone in on the skills that one are listed on the job description, because I do think you have to pull that out and you have to be able to tell a story. But it probably is the marketing girl in me that I just always try to craft this story. I try to tell it in such a beautiful way that the person is like, oh, I really, I'm a person that like pulls on people's heartstrings. And I always go for the emotion. And so a lot of times when I'm looking for new roles, I of course do the research. Like I said, I'm an avid researcher. I find out if whoever I'm interviewing with, let's say they're a soror of mine, or they're HBCU grad, or there's something, I talk about it, in the interview. And then I kind of craft the story from there. And then of course tie my skills to whatever the skills are for the particular role.
So, all right, I'm about to tell on myself. But
Okay.
but in recent years, I didn't do a cover letter for a while. And I'm like,
Okay.
this is hurting me. I ended up getting the job anyway. But I'm like, and I'm such a good writer, but I'm like,
Yeah.
so do you do hiring on your role, at your role?
Not currently. I have done hiring in the past,
Like
but not
cover letter,
currently.
is a cover letter like something you look for?
No.
No.
No. And you know what? I feel like it's 50-50 now, right? Like even when I applied in the past, right? Some people wanted a cover letter, some people didn't. I think it depends on the hiring manager. I'm more so, like I said, I look for that human connection. We have to work, together when I am in a hiring position. I want to feel like, we have some type of connective tissue. What's your story? I'm not really, they talk about this a lot on TikTok, like the millennial manager versus the Gen Z manager and things of that nature. But I really am that. Like, I care about your well being, I care about you as a person. Like I said earlier, I've been through the ringer. Like I've had crazy bosses, I've had crazy experiences, I've been kicked down, cried, all the things, and so I would never want that to be the experience for a person. So cover letters, please. I feel like that's so 1992. I really like a good portfolio and a good story. If you have a portfolio, love that. If you have a great story, that's even better. But it's really about the skills. Tell me about what you've done. I think we get so far away from what people actually can do, like that's what I want to know. So
Child, I love that. You sound like such a good boy. Like you sound very empathetic.
oh,
Okay.
I am. I
Yeah.
am. I feel everything intensely. So, and I feel like in this work, I used to shy away from that, but I had one of my bosses tell me like, no, lean into it. That's what makes you who you are. That's where your passion comes from. That's where, you're really able to pull those stories out of your gut in a sense. So, yeah, I try to be as empathetic as possible.
I think that makes a very great leader, actually.
I do too. I've had great empathetic leaders in my life, and they really set the tone for it, and they really honed in on, like I said, just well-being, and that was big to me. And I said, you know what, when I get in a position where I have, coordinators or assistants or just folks under me, I'm going to be like that. I'm not going to be a tyrant. So, yeah.
I love that. You said in your Instagram post, I believe my sole purpose in this life is to create, highlight, and elevate the Black experience.
Yes.
What are some of the ways you've highlighted us in your career?
Yeah. So, I mean, oh my gosh, in so many ways, I just feel like it's second nature to me. It's not a question. Whenever I can put us on, I'm putting us on, whether that's talent, whether that's vendors that I use. It's just, oh, I know someone and they're Black. I'm just always, that's just always who I've been. And maybe it's from my upbringing, and maybe it's also from a little bit of Hampton and being an HBCU grad, but I just don't think twice about it. It's just who I am. I've been fortunate enough to work on a lot of campaigns that highlight Black people, and I often try to align with that, especially if I take on projects on the side. Um, that's mostly what I want to do. If it's not Black, I'm most likely not doing it. And for, the past 3 years, I was the talent lead for the Nike HBCU Yard Runners campaign. That was a great opportunity to put us on. I've worked on so many Nike culture projects, but that one I would have to say is the highlight. It was just, an opportunity to put on people that look like you and me, but also HBCUs. And so that was just, being able to do that was an invaluable experience. But I also think, just like now, like I was telling you, I cast talent, and I'm always looking for Black and brown talent. I'm always advocating for equal payment because equity is big. We sometimes forget that E in DEI. So equity is big. And I've always been someone in the room that's championing diversity and championing equity. So I hope that answers the question, but definitely, yeah, it's who I am naturally.
It definitely answers the question. I want to ask, so you're in charge of like, hiring talent, you're going for Black and brown talent. Do you think that your fashion law degree and just learning even more about diversity, equity, and inclusion has helped you even more when it's come to this role? For instance, like when it comes to championing us,
Oh,
girl,
yeah, no, I
for us in the boardroom. Yes.
um, you know what? I think it ties into it, but a few years ago, I had a real conversation with myself. Like once I stepped into more management level roles, and I said, you know what? You're in these rooms, you're not going to be quiet. I never was a quiet person. I'm always been known to shake the table, but when I got the chance to sit at the table with, the VPs and directors at that time when I wasn't a director, I was known for saying, "Oh, let's think about so and so," or this person has this, they're interesting, they're cool. How about we utilize them? So and I'm sure even now, I'm sure people are tired of me always saying diversity, diversity, but that's just again, that's who I am. And I'm never going to shy away from it. I'm never going to become meek, and not speak up for us. I feel like if I'm the only one in the room, then I'm gonna be, talking about us and trying to get more of us in the room. I never want to be the only one. Sometimes you are, and it's unfortunate. But if I am, I gladly wear the role of, championing us and really fighting for us and advocating for us.
So you're more talking. Would you say you're extroverted?
I would say, yeah.
You say
The Sagittarius in me.
so my
Yeah.
question for you is, what advice do you have our introverted listeners who may be the only ones in the room, but also want to advocate for us?
You know what? I always say, and I do this in my work now, I always try to find an ally. I always try to find someone that I just resonate with and we connect and we vibe. And oftentimes they're the opposite of me. They might not be as vocal, so they lean on me. So I would say to the person who is a bit more introverted, that's okay, right? Like we're all different, but I do say find someone that might be the opposite of you, that's not afraid, to speak up. And not that you're afraid, you're finding your voice, right? But to find someone that they're like, hey, I'll speak for both of us if I have to. That I think that's the best route. And then also, it's okay to have one-on-ones. You don't have to speak your mind just because you're in a meeting. As much as they might try to push you to say what you have to say in real time, it's okay to say, hey, I'll circle back on that. And then you can send it via email. You can have a one-on-one with your boss. I'm good for that. I love a good one-on-one chat with my boss. And you just figure out the best rhythm for you.
Great advice.
Oh, thank you.
Our last question before audience questions I have is, what is the future for Daisha Roberts? Do you plan on staying in corporate? Do you plan on branching out on your own? What's the future looking like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really no ceiling for me. I've done a lot of things, but I haven't done everything that I have on my list, my personal goals. I mean, so it's so much that I want to do. I'm stepping into my advising bag. I actually advise a fashion nonprofit. So that's fun. That's great. I think that that's next. I do a little consulting as well, you know, for emerging luxury fashion brands. And so I think it's all of that. I think it's me continuing to advocate for us in the corporate space, but also creating new spaces, you know, for people and being a champion to them as well. So you guys will see what happens. You know, I kind of just I've given my whole career to God. And it hasn't he hasn't steered me wrong yet. So we'll see what's next.
I love that. When I say, listen, you about to make me start preaching it here. I
I
completely
love that.
agree.
Yes. And
Okay.
me too. I'm a PK, so I can go, girl.
Okay. Give it to God. That's it. Give
Yes,
it to God.
yes, yes.
So our audience, does anyone have any questions for Deja? Drop them in the chat, or you can simply raise your hand. Let's see.
Don't be shy, guys.
Yeah, give me y'all a chance to ask questions. Go on. Let's see. No, nobody has questions? Y'all,
That's okay if
guys,
y'all don't.
okay.
Y'all can email me, LinkedIn, Instagram if you have questions.
Oh yeah, tell us where we can reach you.
Yes, so on LinkedIn, of course, it's my full name, Daisha Roberts. On Instagram is Day Chanel XOX. And then my email is hello@dejachanel.co.
All right. Thank you
Yeah,
so much, Deja. This has
thank
been
you so much,
really
Naija. This was great. Thanks for having me.
absolutely. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.